Alrighty, YouTube Nunner Empire, what is going down? Welcome back to another video. So it's being reported that actually the 49ers did not come out of Sunday's game fully healthy. It was reported that Aaron Banks and Dre Greenlaw both suffered injuries in Sunday's loss versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, when I made the post-game thoughts video a couple days ago, I mentioned how the 49ers seemingly came out of the game healthy. That, of course, didn't end up being true. Kyle Shanahan spoke to media Monday afternoon about some of the 49ers injuries that happened during this loss. Starting with Dre Greenlaw. Greenlaw has been one of them players on the 49ers that has been a game changer when he's healthy and playing, but has dealt with a large quantity of injuries over his 49ers career up until this point. He's pretty much been injured all year. Going back to week 2, he dealt with a groin injury. He had an ankle injury in weeks 4 and 5. He had the hamstring problem in weeks 6 and 7, which obviously he didn't play against he didn't play against the Cleveland Browns week 6. He was out that game. He ended up actually returning to action in week 7 versus the Vikings, but obviously he was still dealing with that hamstring injury. When it comes to hamstring injuries, those things just kind of don't go away. It's kind of one of them lingering issues, but Dre Greenlaw felt as if he was ready to play week 7, and he did just that. But now Dre Greenlaw's dealing with a shoulder injury that was obviously not previously reported on the injury report. So the way the 49ers are looking at this Dre Greenlaw shoulder sprain, I guess you could say. This is what Kyle Shanahan said to the media yesterday. He said the wear and tear that he has had the past few weeks with his ankle, but his shoulder was the worst thing. Shanahan then went on to say, I know it's been bothering him for a couple of weeks and it got worse during the game. He's one of our many guys who really need this break. So, Kyle Shanahan hopes that Dre Greenlaw will be available after the bye week, but Aaron Banks, on the other hand, that brings me to my second injury. He's going to miss at least 2 games with turf toe. He suffered a hyperextension of his toe toward the end of the game, which means he's at least going to miss 2 games, according to Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan spoke on the injury and said, turf toe, you never know. They told me it should be a few weeks when I got here. I know that's a little vague, but I would say that means at least 3 weeks. I was told he did it on the second to last drive, which is brutal. Obviously, Nick Zakelj or John Feliciano is expected to be one of the guys to step up and step in during Banks' recovery. I know I mentioned earlier about the 49ers trading for interior offensive linemen. They obviously weren't able to, or they really didn't have any interest in any interior offensive linemen, during the trade deadline, all today. And seemingly they weren't really interested. It wasn't ever said that they were interested in adding any interior offensive line or offensive linemen, up until the trade deadline. So, for the most part, with Trent Williams, this offensive line has played fine. Without Trent Williams, it's been okay. I don't think you can necessarily call the 49ers offensive line bad because they really haven't played to the point where you can call them bad. But I definitely think had this Aaron Banks injury been a little more serious, had it been something where he would have had to miss, more than a month or so, I would have fully expected the 49ers then to trade for offensive line help. But they did actually make a signing today. They did sign a veteran offensive lineman. And it happened right in the middle of, when seemingly the Chase Young deal was going down. But they signed offensive lineman Jesse Davis to the practice squad. He's an older offensive lineman. Jesse Davis, who has been out of football for a couple seasons. I think he started 16 games with the Dolphins in 2021. He started at least 15 games from 2018 to 2020. He's 32 years old, but he provides plenty of experience in the event the 49ers need to rely on backup linemen. So they did, address Aaron Banks being out. So that's not necessarily like, it wasn't a thing where Aaron Banks is going down for the season and the 49ers absolutely need to find a replacement. I mean, look, Nick Zakelj or John Feliciano are going to do just fine, I think. And even if they are bad or, any case in that, even if they play pretty poor, the good news is Aaron Banks is only going to be out for a couple weeks, 3 weeks at most, according to Kyle Shanahan. So I don't think it's a situation where the 49ers absolutely had to trade for a offensive lineman. But at the end of the day, as long as they address that injury and address the offensive line in some way, shape, or form, which kind of was expected. When you have injuries to your offensive line, you always kind of expect them to either bring in a veteran guy or something along the lines of that just to provide depth at that position. But again, I mean, I think as far as, Nick Zakelj and John Feliciano, again, I think those guys can step up just fine. If it was up to me and I had to guess, I guess, who would be the replacement for Aaron Banks, it's probably going to be Feliciano. He's had a couple starts already in his Niners career, and I think he's probably the more trustworthy option over Nick Zakelj. So, yeah, I mean, Dre Greenlaw, obviously shoulder sprain. He needs this bye week to kind of, rest up and get as healthy as he possibly can. We're definitely going to need him for, this tough stretch of games coming up. Same with Aaron Banks. If he misses 3 weeks, he misses 3 weeks. But, again, I would fully expect Feliciano to step up and honestly do just fine in his position. So, lastly, we did get an update on Trent Williams. He's missed the last 2 games with an ankle injury. Shanahan mentioned to the media Monday afternoon that they didn't let him work out at all on game day. Shanahan then said, we thought he was too far away after seeing him on Saturday night. Thought he was going to be good, but he wasn't. Hopefully he will have a good week at rehab and be ready to go when we come back for practice on Monday. So obviously, the players have another day of work on Tuesday, which is obviously today before their long week break, and then practice will resume November 6th. So, yeah, I mean, these are all not serious injuries. I definitely think with Dre Greenlaw, that guy's always banged up. That's how he's kind of been for the last couple seasons. As long as Dre Greenlaw can get as healthy as he possibly can be and just be there for the 49ers when they need him the most, especially once we get closer to the playoffs and whatnot, I think that's the biggest thing. But, Aaron Banks has stepped up, in place of Greenlaw, and he hasn't been great, in place of Greenlaw. But, again, I think the 49ers are in a situation where, this bye week came at a really good time because, players like Trent Williams, Dre Greenlaw can get as healthy as they possibly can be. And then obviously, hopefully, be able to play against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I thought, honestly, Trent Williams would end up suiting up Sunday against the Bengals. His ankle injury must be a little more serious than I think a lot of people thought it was. Because I can tell you what, right now, I kind of expected him to play against Minnesota. I definitely expected him to play against Cincinnati, and I guess he just wasn't ready, as Kyle Shanahan said. So, yeah, the 49ers are dealing with injuries. They're banged up, but they're going into their bye week, and, it's a perfect time for guys, to get as healthy as they can possibly be. And, again, with Aaron Banks, the bye week's not really going to matter for him too much because, obviously, no matter what, he's going to miss, a couple games. But at the end of the day, the 49ers bye week is going to be a perfect time for guys like Trent Williams and Dre Greenlaw to rest up as much as they can. And then, hopefully, be ready for Jacksonville coming out of the bye week.